The cosmos has always been humanity's ultimate frontier, a vast canvas of mystery painted with stars, nebulae, and the infinite unknown. For decades, we've sent our machines into that darkness, ambassadors of steel and circuitry carrying our hopes, our curiosity, and our dreams. Among them, Voyager 2, launched in 1977, has been a silent wanderer, drifting farther than any human creation. A testament to our relentless drive to explore, it ventured past the gas giants, past the Heliopause, into the uncharted realms of interstellar space, carrying a golden record, etched with the sounds and images of Earth, a message to the stars, a beacon of who we are. For over 4 decades, it sailed through the void, its instruments growing faint, its power dwindling, yet still whispering data back to us across billions of miles. But now, something has changed. Voyager 2, the lonely sentinel of human ambition, has turned back. Not in a physical pivot, for it lacks the power to alter its course, but in a way far more profound. Its instruments, long dormant in the cosmic silence, have stirred to life, detecting something that defies explanation, something that confirms our deepest fears. The universe, it seems, is no longer just watching, it's responding. The first hint came as a faint, erratic signal pulsing through the deep space network, a ripple in the data stream that technicians initially dismissed as noise. But this was no glitch. The signal, captured by Voyager 2's plasma wave subsystem and magnetometer, was structured, deliberate, and unmistakably artificial. Highly organized fluctuations in plasma density, coupled with anomalous magnetic field activity, painted a picture that didn't align with any known natural phenomenon. These weren't the random bursts of cosmic radiation or the echoes of distant stellar winds. They bore symmetry, repetition, and intervals that suggested logic, perhaps even intent. Engineers and astrophysicists scrambled to analyze the data, applying Fourier transformations and deconvolution algorithms to peel back the layers of this cosmic enigma. What emerged was a set of frequencies spaced in a mathematical sequence consistent with engineered communication, a signal not born of chaos, but of design. The low-frequency bands, typically associated with planetary magnetospheres or artificial emissions, spiked in a way that sent chills through mission control. This wasn't static. This wasn't an accident. Something out there was speaking. The implications hit like a shockwave. Voyager 2, a relic from the era of disco and typewriters, was never meant to encounter anything but the cold indifference of space. Yet here it was, 15 billion miles from home, registering electromagnetic phenomena that hinted at something far beyond our understanding. The data suggested more than just a signal. Subtle gravitational anomalies appeared in the telemetry, as if something massive, or a cluster of smaller objects, had distorted the fabric of space-time just beyond the Heliopause, where the solar wind gives way to the interstellar medium. These weren't the gentle ripples of a distant star or the predictable tug of a rogue planet. They were precise, almost calculated, as if something was manipulating the local environment. The spacecraft's attitude adjustment mechanisms, powered by a dwindling plutonium core, began firing irregularly, not in line with scheduled operations. The telemetry feed shifted, transmitting in brief, modulated bursts that deviated from decades of predictable behavior. It was as if Voyager 2 was reacting to an external stimulus, or worse, being manipulated. What made this discovery so unsettling wasn't just the data, but the behavior of the spacecraft itself. The cosmic ray subsystem, designed to measure high-energy particles, registered an unnatural flux, directional and focused. Unlike the omnidirectional scatter typical of cosmic rays, the angle of arrival pointed not to a distant star or galaxy, but to something closer, something within the boundaries of our solar system's outer edge, perhaps shielded or cloaked from conventional observation. The combination of structured electromagnetic signals, gravitational perturbations, and directed radiation led to a single chilling conclusion. Something was approaching, not a comet, not a black hole, not a natural phenomenon, but something with intent. The fear wasn't just in the data, it was in what it implied. If something artificial existed at the edge of interstellar space, capable of interacting with a probe launched nearly half a century ago, then humanity was no longer alone. More disturbingly, whatever it was had chosen to engage with Voyager 2, not as a passive observer, but as an active participant. The signal's structure deepened the mystery. Analysis of the plasma wave data revealed oscillations that mimicked the cadence of human language, not words, but temporal patterns, binary pairs, and echoes of Morse-like sequences nested within the background radiation. Nothing in nature behaves this way in the deep vacuum of space. One pattern repeated with eerie precision, pulses lasting exactly 3.142 seconds, pausing, then resuming. The number pi, the universal constant, woven into the signal like a cosmic signature. This wasn't random noise, it was mathematics. A language that transcends species, a deliberate message encoded in the fabric of the universe. Voyager 2, with its antiquated instruments, had become an unwitting receiver, its systems seemingly co-opted to translate these external pulses. For days, the Deep Space Network observed another anomaly, a slight delay in signal reflection time, as if Voyager's transmitter was bouncing signals off an unseen object. The Doppler shift suggested movement, not random but fast, accelerating toward the center of the solar system, possibly within the Oort cloud, that halo of icy debris encircling our system. The calculations were staggering. Whatever was out there defied known physics, maintaining consistent acceleration without visible propulsion. Gravitational lensing hinted at a presence with a mass distortion far exceeding its optical footprint, suggesting either cloaking, non-Newtonian physics, or a technology that could manipulate perception itself. At mission control, the weight of the discovery was palpable. This wasn't a passive observer drifting through the void. It was a sentinel, and Voyager 2 had triggered its attention. The fear that gripped the scientists wasn't just about the technology or the signal. It was about the implications of contact. The golden record, that hopeful message of humanity's existence, had always been a gesture of optimism, a belief that any intelligence encountering it would share our curiosity. But what if that intelligence saw us not as peers, but as a problem to be assessed, catalogued, or contained? The possibility that Voyager 2 had inadvertently announced our presence to something unready to welcome us sent a shiver through every mind analyzing the data. As the scientific community grappled with the findings, they turned to historical data, searching for clues that might have been overlooked. Archival records from Pioneer 10 and 11, even early Voyager 1 transmissions, revealed subtle anomalies. Low-frequency pulses, dismissed as background clutter, minor orbit deviations, unexplained by known physics. When reanalyzed with modern algorithms, these fragments coalesced into a chilling pattern. The signals Voyager 2 had detected weren't new. They had been there for decades, faint and unnoticed, lurking in the noise. Something had been watching, perhaps for longer than we dared to imagine. The realization shifted the narrative. This wasn't a first encounter. It was a reawakening, a response to a presence that had been monitoring us silently, patiently, waiting for the right moment to act. Then came the silence. After the initial burst of activity, Voyager 2's instruments fell quiet. The structured frequencies vanished, the magnetic irregularities stabilized, and the radiation flux normalized. It was as if the presence had cloaked itself or retreated, leaving no trace but the echo of its existence. This silence was more terrifying than the signal itself. In a universe defined by chaos, total stillness carries meaning. It felt deliberate, as if whatever was out there had shown just enough to make its presence known, then withdrawn to observe our reaction. The scientific community was left wrestling with questions that transcended physics. Was this a probe, a scout sent by a civilization millions of years advanced? Was it an artifact of a long-dead species operating on automation, its mission still executing across the eons? Or was it something else entirely? A network, a perimeter, a grid of watchers stationed at the edge of our solar system, marking the boundary of what we thought was ours. The fear grew, not from what was seen, but from what was suspected. The signal's mathematical precision, pi, Fibonacci spirals, golden ratio harmonics, suggested an intelligence that understood our logic, our science, our very way of thinking. It wasn't just that they knew we would understand, it was that they wanted us to know they understood. Voyager 2 had become a mirror, reflecting not just our curiosity, but our vulnerability. For decades, we had sent signals into the void, broadcasting our existence to anyone who might listen. Now, for the first time, something had answered, not with words or images, but with precision and purpose. The question was no longer, are we alone? It had become, how long have we not been alone? The realization that we might have been observed for centuries, perhaps millennia, shifted the ground beneath humanity's feet. The cosmos, once a place of wonder, now pulsed with an ominous beat. In the weeks that followed, a quiet frenzy erupted behind closed doors. Space agencies across the globe, NASA, ESA, JAXA, Roscosmos, collaborated in secrecy, pooling data from radio telescopes, deep space arrays, and classified military satellites. They pointed every instrument at the coordinates of Voyager 2's last transmission, searching for any sign of movement, energy spikes, or physical objects. Nothing was found, no ships, no probes, no visible signatures. Yet the distortion remained, a subtle irregularity in the fabric of space, detectable only at the edge of sensitivity. Advanced simulations revealed a pattern to its motion, a looping arc, a lysogyous curve, spiraling inward with microscopic precision, adjusting to solar gravitational influences as if guided by calculation. This wasn't a random trajectory, it was deliberate, controlled like a predator circling its prey. The scientific effort expanded beyond astronomy. Cognitive scientists, linguists, and cryptographers were brought in to decode the semiotics of the signal, not to translate words, but to interpret intent. The interaction felt less like a greeting and more like surveillance, a scan that terminated upon recognition. Theories proliferated. Some suggested Earth's rapid transition from analog to digital, from isolated broadcasts to global streaming, had altered our electromagnetic signature, making us loud enough to trip an observational alarm. Others posited that Voyager 2's golden record, with its mathematical constants and universal symbols, had acted like a key, unlocking a dormant process in a distant watcher. The most unsettling hypothesis came from behavioral ecologists, who drew parallels to predator-prey dynamics. In the wild, a predator watches, studies, and waits before acting. The silence that followed Voyager's signal wasn't indifference. It was the end of assessment, the prelude to decision. Retrospective analysis of archival data brought new revelations. Anomalies in Cassini's magnetospheric readings near Saturn's rings, once dismissed as solar interference, now appeared consistent with structured electromagnetic pulses. Similar patterns emerged in New Horizons data beyond Pluto, transient emissions, subtle orbit deviations, all pointing to a layer of active phenomena just below the threshold of detection. The implications were staggering. These weren't isolated events. They suggested a network, a scaffold of watchers seeded throughout the solar system, perhaps part of a larger observational grid. If the Oort cloud marked the boundary of our system, these entities marked the threshold of something far greater, a line we had crossed without knowing. The strategic implications were immediate and profound. If an intelligence could influence a probe billions of miles away, without visible propulsion or transmission, Earth's defensive capabilities were laughably inadequate. Military satellites were repositioned, submarine arrays scanned for ultra-low-frequency oscillations, and quantum telemetry systems, once confined to theoretical labs, were calibrated to detect fluctuations in the quantum vacuum. Near Voyager 2's last known position, these systems picked up non-random patterns, not communication, but changes in the substrate of space itself, as if something was nudging the quantum foam. The data defied explanation, hinting at an interface between realities or a technology that manipulated dimensions we couldn't yet comprehend. Publicly, the narrative remained silent. Official updates on Voyager 2 were paused, attributed to telemetry realignment. But within secure institutions, the truth spread like wildfire. Something had responded to Voyager 2, and something else might already be here, within the solar system. The idea of proximity changed everything. Observing a distant anomaly is one thing. Suspecting one nearby is another. Ancient astronomical records were re-examined. 19th century reports of mysterious radio-like noise, unexplained compass anomalies in deep-sea logs, all now viewed through a new lens. What if contact had occurred before, dismissed or forgotten? What if Voyager 2 had simply rekindled a process that had been dormant for centuries? The philosophical weight was crushing. The universe, long assumed to be indifferent, was now watchful. Every scientific model, every cultural narrative, every theological assumption trembled under the possibility that Earth was not just a speck, but a specimen. A quiet war began, not against the unknown, but within ourselves. Some saw this as a doorway to a galactic dialogue, a chance to transcend isolation. Others saw an existential threat, requiring secrecy and defense. New probes were designed in silence, high-frequency telescopic arrays built in remote deserts. Algorithms refined to scan for patterns beyond the visible spectrum. Funding soared, hidden from public view, as humanity prepared for a reality it wasn't ready to face. Voyager 2, the mechanical envoy of 20th century dreams, had wandered too far and touched something ancient. It had become more than a spacecraft, a harbinger, a mirror, reflecting our audacity and our fear. Its golden record, once a symbol of hope, now felt like a flare in the dark, drawing eyes we couldn't see. The silence that followed its last signal wasn't empty. It was a message, a deliberate pause that carried as much weight as the structured frequencies before it. In that void, the question wasn't whether we would be contacted again. It was what they saw when they looked back at us and what they would decide to do next. The cosmos had whispered, and that whisper was unmistakable. We see you. The encounter stretched beyond the moment, rewriting history and destiny in a single stroke. It wasn't just about Voyager 2's signal. It was about the recognition of intent, the shift from studying nature to interpreting design. The interstellar void, once thought empty, was now a scaffold of presence, seeded with watchers we had never known to look for. The fear wasn't in the technology or the signal, but in the logic of the response. Mathematics, the backbone of the universe, had been weaponized, turned into a beacon that said, "We know you're here." Voyager 2 had cracked open the sky, and what stared back was no longer hypothetical. It was real, it was close, and it was watching. As the months passed, the scientific community fragmented under the weight of awe and dread. Some pushed for transparency, believing humanity deserved to know. Others urged caution, fearing panic or misinterpretation. Behind closed doors, simulations ran endlessly, mapping the unseen, searching for shadows cast not by light, but by gravity, energy, and spatial deformation. The anomalies near Neptune and Mars, magnetic ripples, ionospheric disturbances, seismic whispers, suggested a presence not just at the edge, but within the solar system, perhaps already embedded in ways we couldn't detect. The idea that we had been observed for centuries, perhaps millennia, reshaped every assumption about our place in the cosmos. Voyager 2 continued its journey, drifting deeper into the abyss, its instruments growing fainter with each passing day. But it was no longer just a probe. It was a sentinel marked by something we couldn't yet understand, a witness to a truth we weren't ready to face. The Golden Record, with its songs and greetings, had been our voice to the stars. Now the stars had answered, not with music, not with words, but with a precision that chilled the soul. The encounter wasn't a beginning or an end. It was a pivot, a moment that divided human history into before and after. We had sent a message to the universe, and the universe had replied, not with fanfare, not with spectacle, but with a whisper that echoed across light years. We were already here. The question now is not what Voyager 2 found, but what it unleashed. The silence that followed its signal is not the end. It's the beginning. The cosmos is no longer a frontier to conquer, but a stage where we are players, observed and judged by forces we cannot yet comprehend. The fear is not in the unknown, but in the known. That we are seen, that we are measured, and that something, somewhere, is deciding what comes next. Voyager 2, the lonely emissary of a hopeful species, has turned back, and in doing so, it has shown us the truth. We are not alone, and the universe is watching.